1837. Inside the cold, silent walls of Kensington Palace, a major royal conspiracy was unfolding. Meet the ultimate helicopter parents of the 19th century, the Duchess of Kent and her very smug major domo, Sir John Conroy. Together, they invented something called the Kensington System, a fancy name for locking a little girl in a golden bubble. Rule number 1 of the system: the future queen was never allowed to sleep alone. Yes, she had to share a bedroom with her mother every single night. Rule number 2, she could never walk down the stairs without someone holding her hand. Talk about extreme safety measures, like a fragile block of glass. And rule number 3, novels were strictly forbidden. Her reading material was censored harder than a modern state document. Only dull history lessons for the little lady. Her entire childhood, was completely controlled by strict tutors and endless exams. The pressure was constantly building up. But she wasn't entirely alone. Her governess, Baroness Lazen, became the true emotional center of her isolated world, teaching her never to tell a lie. This extreme suppression didn't break her. Instead, it forged an imperious temper. A vein of iron ran through her character. Conroy and the Duchess wanted to use her as a vehicle for their own power. They wanted her weak, dependent, and completely under their thumb. When the old King William offered Victoria an independent allowance of £10,000, the Duchess immediately tried to physically confiscate the letter. But our princess boldly stepped forward, snatched the letter herself, and flatly defied her mother's financial demands. She immediately wrote to accept the king's independent offer, completely bypassing her mother's greedy hands. 1-0 to Victoria. In that heavily divided household, Victoria silently aligned herself with Lazen, maintaining a tight-lipped, absolute Cold War against her mother. For years, the silent war of wills dragged on inside the palace. The days passed slowly, methodically, and then the fateful morning arrived. June 20th, 1837. At 5 a.m., the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain arrived post-haste at Kensington. The young girl got out of bed, put on her dressing gown, and went into the room completely by herself to meet the messengers. They fell on their knees, looked up at the teenager, and officially announced that the old king was dead. She was now the queen. In that exact moment, the white little slavey of Kensington was no more. She was officially the Queen of England. Her mother, the Duchess, immediately swooped in, probably thinking, well, so our time to rule the empire has finally arrived. But Victoria looked at her, raised a cold, flat hand, and prepared to drop her very first royal request. Dear Mama, am I really and truly the queen? When the Duchess eagerly said yes, Victoria instantly shut her down. Then let me be by myself for an hour. Talk about an instant and brutal reality check. The Duchess of Kent was left standing in the cold hallway, completely dumbfounded. For 1 full hour, the entire British Empire sat in total silence. No active orders, no meetings. The world's most powerful teenager just wanted 60 minutes of absolute quiet, far away from her mother's suffocating shadow. When the hour was finally up, the young queen stepped out. Her mother was waiting, hoping for a change of heart. But instead of an apology, Victoria issued her second command: move my bed out of my mother's bedroom, permanently. 18 years of continuous Kensington surveillance smashed in a single day. The beds were separated forever. This wasn't just furniture moving. This was the physical dismantling of the Kensington prison bubble, block by block. The historical irony was absolute. The exact moment the Duchess had spent her entire life waiting for resulted in her instant annihilation. One by one, the suffocating rules that controlled her every breath were comically tossed into the bin. She was determined to make a clean break. Victoria ordered the entire royal household to leave Kensington Palace forever. Though she went with painful memories, she bid adieu to her birthplace. She was officially moving her headquarters. Welcome to Buckingham Palace, her brand new kingdom where she was finally the absolute master of her own life. Victoria made sure her mother got her own suite of rooms, which happened to be located as far away from her own apartments as possible. Next up was the mastermind behind the system, Sir John Conroy. He stood waiting, fully expecting to rule the empire behind her back. But Victoria had a very special package for him. She officially granted him a baronetcy and a pension, on one simple condition. He was completely and permanently banished from her personal presence. His political career was instantly, irrevocably dead. Instead, her trusted companion, Baroness Layson, took absolute control of the royal keys and the Queen's private finances. Welcome to Act 2, where a newly liberated teenage queen is about to find out that ruling an empire is no easy task. Stay tuned. And then, a very special partner in crime entered the scene. Lord Melbourne, the charming Prime Minister. Melbourne was cynical, relaxed, and loved gossiping. To the lonely teenager, he became the father she never had. He spent hours sitting next to her, teaching her the secrets of politics while she hung on his every word. Victoria wrote endless pages in her diary about how amazing Melbourne was. Her childhood cage was replaced by royal adoration. Far away in her lonely palace suite, the Duchess of Kent could only listen to the distant music in absolute despair. She stayed up until 2 a.m., dancing and drinking, completely defying her mother's strict old rules of early bedtime. One by one, the rigid rules of her childhood were comically tossed into the bin. She was finally enjoying her freedom. But the political honeymoon was about to end. The conservative Tories watched this cozy Whig alliance in absolute horror. They saw a teenage queen completely controlled by Melbourne. A massive political tug-of-war was secretly brewing, and Victoria's famous vein of iron began to show. She stubbornly refused to listen to any criticism. Then the palace was hit by its very first major scandal, the tragic affair of Lady Flora Hastings. Victoria and her loyal Layton accused the poor lady of an unmarried pregnancy, spreading vicious court gossip. It turned out to be a tragic medical mistake, and the public went wild with anger at the young queen. The poor Lady Hastings died shortly after, and Victoria's popularity took a massive, catastrophic hit. For the first time, people actively booed the queen in public, shouting, "Mrs. Melbourne," at her carriage. Melbourne tried to calm her down, but her self-will had developed into a fixed, impenetrable obstinacy. To make matters worse, Melbourne's government collapsed under pressure, forcing him to officially resign. The new Tory Prime Minister, Sir Robert Peel, entered the palace, demanding that she dismiss her Whig lady companions to show neutrality. But Victoria flatly refused. She was not going to let a Tory tell her who her friends could be. This sparked the famous bedchamber crisis. The teenage queen was now holding the entire British government hostage. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, behind the grand diplomatic curtains of Europe, a master puppeteer was spinning his webs. King Leopold of Belgium had a brilliant family plan. Marry his very serious, bookish nephew Albert to the Queen of England. But Victoria was having absolutely none of it. She fiercely resisted, rolling her projecting eyes whenever her mother mentioned Albert's name. She had just escaped one prison bubble, and she was not about to jump straight into another. Melbourne agreed. He wanted his favorite young sovereign completely to himself without some annoying German prince messing up their cozy chats. But the clock was ticking and Parliament was growing extremely restless. The country wanted a royal wedding, preferably soon. And then in October 1839, the dreaded German cousins finally arrived at Windsor Castle. Victoria stood in the grand corridor, expecting dull, awkward boys. But instead, he was comically handsome. The teenage queen was instantly, completely, and utterly smitten. The princes performed a rigid ceremonial bow, looking incredibly serious and proper in their tight vintage coats. They walked down the stone corridors, talking for hours about science, music, and painting, while she drank in Albert's every word. Her private diary went absolutely wild. She wrote pages about how dearest Albert was the most beautiful creature on earth. But there was one major constitutional hitch. As queen, Albert could never ask for her hand. She had to do it. So with a racing heart, she summoned the prince to her private room, awkwardly presenting a flat ring box. Albert looked at her with a frozen expression, nodded his square head, and officially accepted the royal offer. The Duchess, her mother, tried to swoop in to claim credit, but Victoria and her loyal Lehzen instantly shut her out. The political match was chiseled in stone. Saxe-Coburg and Great Britain were comically, inextricably united. Melbourne smiled sadly, realizing his golden days as her sole protector were slowly coming to a permanent end. A new power dynamic was emerging inside the palace walls. The era of Albert was about to begin. Welcome to Act 4, where a bookish prince is about to find out that ruling alongside Victoria is no easy task. On February 10th, 1840, the historic wedding finally took place. Great Britain celebrated a match made in political heaven. But behind the beautiful white satin dress, a silent and brutal war for domestic dominance was just getting started. At first, Victoria treated her handsome husband like a beautiful, useless puppet. She absolutely refused to let him touch any political documents. She basically told him, "You handle the music, my love, and let me run the empire." Albert was relegated to writing letters in the corner. Imagine being a highly educated German prince, and realizing your only job in England was to stand there and look pretty. The legendary story goes that during a palace argument, Albert locked himself in his study. When Victoria knocked and shouted, "Who is there?" he kept quiet. She shouted, "I am the Queen of England." Nothing happened. Only when she knocked again and said, "Your wife, Albert," did the door finally open. But Albert's real enemy wasn't Victoria. It was her beloved governess, Baroness Lehzen, who still controlled the royal keys. Lehzen managed the entire private household, including the Queen's money. To her, Albert was just an unwelcome German intruder. It was a silent, exhausting Cold War inside the palace, a domestic battle for the Queen's ultimate loyalty. And then Victoria had her first baby, Princess Vicky. Of course, Lehzen immediately took charge of the royal nursery, bringing in her own rules. But Lehzen was a terrible nursery manager. The poor royal baby fell seriously ill, and Victoria went into a complete panic. This was Albert's golden opportunity. He stormed into the nursery, blamed Lehzen for the baby's illness, and forced Victoria to choose. Victoria, realizing her baby's life was at stake, finally let go of her childhood loyalty. Lehzen's empire was about to crash. In September 1842, Baroness Lehzen was officially pensioned off and packed back to Germany. The ultimate coup was complete. First Conroy, then the Duchess, and now Lehzen. One by one, Albert had systematically cleared the palace of all Victoria's controllers. From that day on, Albert was no longer a puppet. He became Victoria's private secretary, her co-ruler, and the de facto master of the house. The helicopter parenting of Kensington had failed spectacularly. In trying to raise a weak, easily manipulated queen, they had accidentally forged a stubborn sovereign with a vein of iron and a brilliant prince who now held the real reins of the British Empire. Thank you for watching Sarcastic History. Join us in episode 2 of Imperial Secrets, where things are about to get way crazier with Lord Palmerston. Bye for now.